The silver light of a dying moon still clings to the edges of the world as you find yourself standing upon the soft, damp grasses of a vast meadow in the reach, where the earth seems to breathe in a slow and rhythmic slumber. There is no wind here, only the ghost of a breeze that carries the scent of clover and crushed thyme, and the mist lies heavy and white across the ground, obscuring the horizon so that the world feels small, intimate, and infinitely peaceful. You take a step, and the dew-laden blades of grass give way beneath your boots with a muted, rhythmic crunch that sounds like a secret shared between the earth and the sky. This is the hour of the wolf, the time when the stars begin to pale, but the sun has yet to break its golden seal upon the east. And in this suspended moment, the history of Westeros feels not like a chronicle of wars and kings, but like a soft, drifting memory. You walk toward the great encampment that has risen like a city of silk and wood overnight, its peaks and poles silhouetted against the indigo sky. The pavilions are vast and silent, their colors muted by the grey dawn. Yet even in the dimness, you can see the faint shimmer of gold thread on a Tyrell rose or the deep, velvet red of a Lannister lion. There is a profound stillness here, a quietude so deep it feels as though the very air is waiting for a word that hasn't been spoken yet. As you move between the rows of tents, the sounds of the morning begin to reach you, not as a clamour, but as a series of gentle, isolated notes. You hear the rhythmic, metallic clinking of mail being lifted from a wooden stand, a sound like falling rain hitting a tin roof, soft and steady. Somewhere nearby, a squire is polishing a breastplate with a cloth, the rhythmic shush-shush creating a lullaby of preparation. The scent of the camp begins to envelop you, a rich and comforting tapestry of aromas that speak of hearth and home, even in this place of nomadic glory. There is the sharp, clean smell of neatsfoot oil used to supple the heavy leather of saddles and bridles, and the deeper, muskier scent of wood smoke drifting from small, low-burning cookfires. You catch the fragrance of early bread, the dough rising and browning over stones, filling the cool air with a warmth that makes your chest feel full and heavy with peace. You pass a line of picketed warhorses, their great, powerful bodies, dark shapes in the mist. These are the destriers of legend, animals bred for the charge, yet here, in the dawn, they are as calm as the hills. You watch the rhythmic expansion of their ribs as they breathe, their breath blossoming in the chill air like white flowers that fade as soon as they bloom. One horse, a massive grey with a coat like dappled riverstones, turns its head toward you, its large, dark eye reflecting the fading stars, and it lets out a long, low nicker that vibrates in the quiet air like a cello string. There is no fear in these animals, only a profound, grounded patience. They know the weight of the man they carry, and they know the soft touch of the brush, and in this moment they are content to simply exist in the cool, grey light. You continue your walk, your feet finding a path through the clover, and you see the banners hanging lazily from their poles. They do not snap or flutter with the aggression of battle. Instead, they drape in heavy, elegant folds, dampened by the night's dew, moving only slightly in the phantom current of the air. You see the pale blue of Arryn, the charcoal grey of Stark, and the sea green of Valerian, all of them stripped of their territorial pride by the egalitarian silver of the morning mist. It is a moment of unity, a time before the heralds cry and the lances break, when every night is merely a man dreaming of the sun. Ahead of you, near the edge of the tilting ground where the grass has been mown short and sweet, you see a small, modest tent of undyed linen. Outside, sitting on a low stool of dark oak, is a young knight. He is no more than 20, his face still holding the softness of youth, though his eyes are fixed on the horizon with a steady, quiet intensity. He does not see you, for he is lost in the sanctuary of his own thoughts, a space where the legends of the past meet the reality of the present. You watch as he slowly, methodically begins to fasten the greaves upon his legs. Every movement is deliberate, a ritual of focus and calm. There is a profound weight to the armor, not just the physical heaviness of the steel, but the weight of expectation, the weight of a name, and the weight of the stories he has heard since he was a child at his mother's knee. He pauses, his hands resting on the cold metal, and takes a deep, slow breath. You can see the rise and fall of his chest, the way he lets the air out in a long, steady stream that mingles with the mist. He is not afraid. Rather, he is standing at the threshold of a great door, looking into a room filled with light. He thinks of the knights who came before him, the dragon knight in his white scales, the Serwyn of the mirror shield, and the giants of the Reach who once rode these same fields. To him, they are not just names in a book, but shadows that walked beside him in the dawn. He feels the coolness of the steel against his skin, a sharp contrast to the warmth of his own blood, and it grounds him, reminding him that he is part of a long, unbroken chain of honor. His squire, a boy even younger than himself, moves quietly in the background, handing him a padded gambeson with a reverence that is touching to behold. No words are exchanged between them. None are needed. The silence is their language, a shared understanding of the gravity and the beauty of this hour. You watch as the young knight stands, his armor catching the very first, most infinitesimal hint of light from the east. He adjusts the fit of his gorget, feeling the familiar pressure against his throat, a reminder to keep his head high and his gaze true. He looks toward the tournament field, which lies empty and waiting, a stage of green velvet surrounded by the tiered wooden stands that will soon be filled with the colors of 1,000 houses. But for now, it is a cathedral of grass and sky, silent and holy. He thinks of the joust not as a contest of strength, but as a dance of precision and grace, a way to honor the lady who gave him her favorer, simple ribbon of pale silk tucked safely against his heart beneath the steel. He feels the stillness of the world as a physical presence, a gentle hand pressed against his shoulder, telling him to wait, to be still, to simply be. The anticipation in his gut is not a sharp knot of anxiety, but a slow, glowing coal, a warmth that radiates through his limbs and makes him feel alive in a way he has never felt before. He is a part of Westeros now, a part of its soil and its songs, a single note in a vast and ancient melody. The mist begins to thin, pulling back like a curtain being drawn by an unseen hand, revealing the long, straight lines of the lists and the colorful shields hung along the fence, each one representing a story, a family, a dream. You see him reach out and touch the hilt of his sword, not to draw it, but to feel the steady reality of the pommel, the way it fits into the palm of his hand like a promise. He looks up as the sky begins to change from indigo to a soft, bruised purple, then to a delicate, shimmering pearl. The first birds begin to stir in the trees at the meadow's edge, their songs tentative and sweet, breaking the silence with the fragility of glass. He takes one more breath, deeper than the others, filling his lungs with the scent of the waking earth and the cold, clean promise of the day. The weight of his armor no longer feels like a burden. It feels like a second skin, a shell that protects the vulnerability of his hope. He begins to walk, his steps slow and measured, moving away from the safety of his tent and toward the open expanse of the field. Each footfall is muffled by the thick grass, a quiet thud that echoes the beating of his own heart. You follow him with your eyes, feeling the pull of the morning as the horizon begins to glow with a pale, buttery light. The stars have all but vanished now, retreated into the depths of the sky, leaving the world to the men of iron and the horses of fire. The young knight stops at the edge of the lists, his silhouette dark and sharp against the brightening air. He is a solitary figure, yet he is not alone. He is surrounded by the ghosts of 1,000 tournaments, the echoes of 1,000 cheers, and the quiet, enduring spirit of the land. The sun is coming, a golden sliver rising over the distant hills, casting long, dramatic shadows across the dew-streaked grass. The world is waking up, the silver turning to gold, the silence turning to the low hum of a world in motion. You feel a sense of profound peace as you watch him stand there, bathed in the first true light of the morning, ready to step into the legend that awaits him. The air is growing warmer, the chill of the night evaporating into the ether, and the mist is rising in long ethereal plumes that dance in the sunlight. This is the beginning, the soft opening of a chapter that will be written in sweat and wood and steel. But for this one perfect moment, it is simply a dream of honor. The young knight moves forward again, his shadow stretching out before him, leading the way into the brilliance of the rising sun. He walks toward the center of the field, toward the heart of the day, as the echoes of the night fade into the brightness of the morning. You watch him until he is almost lost in the glare, a shimmering figure of silver and light, as the first horn sounds in the distance, a low, resonant call that signals the end of the dream and the start of the glory. The golden light of the newborn sun now spills across the tournament field like honey poured over a green velvet cloth. And as you stand there in the second person of this waking dream, you feel the warmth of the morning begin to chase away the lingering silver chill of the dawn. The world of Westeros is no longer a place of grey mists and hushed whispers, but a tapestry of vivid, saturated colors that seem to vibrate with the low, resonant hum of life. You watch as the wooden stands, built with the scent of fresh pine and sturdy oak, begin to fill with the nobility of the realm. Their movements slow and graceful like the turning of a great, ornate wheel. There is no rush in their arrival. Instead, there is a rhythmic, ceremonial quality to the way they take their seats. Their embroidered cloaks of heavy wool and fine silk trailing behind them like the tails of exotic birds. You see the deep crimsons of the west, the sea-foam greens of the reach, and the sun-baked oranges of the Dornish marches, all blending together into a kaleidoscope of heritage and pride. The murmur of the crowd is not a sharp or jarring noise, but a soft, collective sigh that rises from the earth like the sound of distant surf breaking against a smooth stone shore. It is a comforting sound, a low drone of conversation and laughter that speaks of shared history and the simple joy of a bright morning. You look up at the high seats where the great lords and ladies sit under canopies of striped silk, their faces pale and serene in the shadow of the pavilions. The sunlight reflects off the polished helms of the guards standing at the periphery, creating tiny, dancing stars that skip across the grass whenever they move. Everything feels deliberate, as if the day itself is a choreographed dance intended to honor the traditions of 1,000 years. You hear the first of the ceremonial horns, a long, mournful, and yet triumphant note that rolls across the meadow and echoes off the distant hills. It is a sound that settles deep in your chest, a vibration of bronze and breath that announces the transition from preparation to performance. The air is now thick with the scent of crushed grass and the faint, sweet perfume of the flowers that the ladies have woven into their hair or pinned to their bodices. You watch as the first pair of knights enters the lists, their horses moving with a measured, high-stepping gait that suggests they understand the importance of the moment as much as their riders do. The armor of these knights is so brightly polished that it seems to hold the entire world within its curves, the blue of the sky, the green of the field, and the white of the clouds, all captured in the steel. There is a profound stillness that descends upon the crowd as the two men take their places at opposite ends of the long wooden tilt. You can hear the soft creak of leather as they adjust their seats, and the muffled clinking of the metal rings on their bridles. The silence is a physical weight, a momentary suspension of time where the only thing that exists is the strip of earth between them. Then, with a suddenness that is more rhythmic than violent, the horses are spurred into motion. You feel the vibration in the soles of your feet before you hear the sound, the rhythmic, heavy thunder of hooves beating against the sod, a primal percussion that quickens the pulse without disturbing the soul. The lances are lowered in a slow, steady arc, their tips pointed toward the sky before dropping to find their mark with the precision of a hawk's stoop. You watch as the distance between the two riders vanishes, the space collapsing until there is a single, sharp moment of contact. There is the sound of splintering wood, a bright, percussive crack that echoes like a dry branch snapping in a winter forest, and the air is briefly filled with pale, dancing shards of ash that catch the light like falling leaves. One knight is unseated, sliding from his saddle with a grace that seems almost intentional, his descent cushioned by the thick, lush grass. The crowd erupts into a gentle roar of applause, a sound like a sudden wind moving through a forest of autumn leaves, appreciative and warm. There is no malice in the fall, only the acknowledgement of a skill well met and a challenge bravely accepted. The unseated knight rises slowly, dusting the green stains from his surcoat, and salutes his opponent with a nod of his helm that is returned with equal solemnity. You see the squires run out onto the field to collect the broken lances, their movements quick and quiet, clearing the stage for the next act of this grand, slow-moving play. The sun climbs higher, and the shadows of the pavilions shorten, the heat of the day beginning to draw the moisture from the ground in thin, shimmering veils of heat haze. You find yourself drawn back to the young knight you observed in the dawn, who now stands in the shadow of a great elm tree near the entrance to the lists. He has seen the first tilt, and he has heard the roar of the crowd, yet he remains as calm as the surface of a mountain pool. He is waiting for his name to be called, his gauntleted hands resting easily at his sides. He watches the progress of the tournament with a detached, poetic interest, his mind moving through the motions of the joust before his body has even begun. He thinks of the way the weight of the lance will feel in his hand, a heavy, balanced extension of his own arm. He thinks of the way the air will whistle through the eye slits of his visor once he is at the gallop, a private, rushing wind that isolates him from the rest of the world. He feels the anticipation not as a sharp edge of fear, but as a slow, rising tide of purpose. It is a feeling of being exactly where he is meant to be, a cog in the great, golden machinery of Westeros history. He watches a pair of young pages carrying a tray of cool water and lemon cakes through the stands, their voices high and clear as they offer refreshment to the spectators. Everything is so peaceful, so ordered, that it feels less like a contest and more like a liturgy of the horse and the spear. The young knight adjusts his stance, feeling the way the earth supports him through the thickness of his steel sabatons. He looks at his horse, a chestnut mare with a coat like polished mahogany, who is currently being brushed by his squire with long, soothing strokes. The mare's ears are forward, her eyes bright and curious, reflecting the pageantry around her. He walks over to her and lays a hand on her neck, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the skin and the steady, rhythmic beating of her heart. They are a team, a single entity composed of flesh and iron and will. And in this moment of quiet waiting, they are both perfectly at rest. You see him look up at the sky, which is now a deep, endless blue, devoid of any clouds. He is thinking of his home, perhaps a small keep in the Stormlands, or a manor in the Crownlands, and the people who are waiting to hear word of his deeds. He knows that today is the day he steps out of the shadow of his ancestors and into his own light, and the thought brings a faint, serene smile to his lips that is hidden by the shadows of his helm. The murmurs of the crowd continue to rise and fall, a sea of voices that carries the weight of 1,000 different stories. Yet here, in the shade of the elm, there is only the silence of the soul. He hears the heralds call out another pair of names, names that are ancient and resonant, carrying the echoes of old battles and older pieces. He watches as they ride past, their horses' manes braided with ribbons that match their lord's colours, the silk snapping softly in the breeze created by their movement. The rhythm of the day is now fully established. The call, the charge, the impact, the applause, and it is a rhythm that lulls the senses into a state of hypnotic calm. You feel the slow passage of time as a gift, a series of moments that are meant to be savoured rather than hurried through. The young knight takes a final, deep breath, tasting the salt and the grass and the sun. He is not impatient for his turn. He understands that the waiting is as much a part of the tournament as the joust itself. It is the time when the spirit is tempered, when the distractions of the world are stripped away until only the essence of the night remains. He watches as a group of musicians near the royal box begin to play a soft, melodic tune on lutes and pipes, the music drifting across the field like a thread of silver through a dark cloth. It is a song of the road and the river, a song that speaks of the beauty of the land they are all gathered to celebrate. The young knight closes his eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over him, feeling the vibrations of the strings in the marrow of his bones. When he opens them again, the world seems even brighter, even more significant. He sees the way the sunlight catches the edges of the broken lances lying in the grass, turning the splinters into shards of gold. He sees the way the ladies in the stands lean forward, their faces illuminated by excitement and grace, their favours held tightly in their hands. He knows that soon his name will be spoken by the herald, a sound that will carry across the meadow and into the pages of the future. But for now, he is content to be the watcher, the dreamer, the silent guardian of his own potential. The anticipation within him is like a warm glow in a hearth, steady and constant, providing light without burning. He feels the weight of his armour as a comfort, a familiar embrace that reminds him of his training and his duty. He looks out at the field, which is now a mosaic of churned earth and green grass, a testament to the energy that has already been spent and the energy that is yet to come. The horses' hooves have left deep, rhythmic indentations in the soil, like the markings of a giant hand. The herald's voice finally catches the light of the afternoon, a resonant silver bell that rings across the meadow. And as your name is spoken into the warm, honeyed air, you feel a shift in the very fabric of the world, a transition from the soft periphery of the dream to its vibrant and pulsing center. You reach out and take the reins of your chestnut mare, the leather feeling supple and familiar against your gauntlet palm, a connection that goes beyond the physical and into the realm of shared purpose. You swing yourself into the saddle with a slow and deliberate grace, the weight of your plate armor settling onto the horse's back with a muffled, metallic groan that is quickly swallowed by the vastness of the field. As you ride toward the end of the lists, the crowd's murmur seems to recede, becoming a distant and rhythmic pulse, like the sound of a heart beating underwater. Steady and rhythmic and strangely comforting. You are now within the wooden corridors of the tilt, a narrow world of white-painted oak and churned green earth, where the perspective of the horizon is lost and all that remains is the long, straight line of the barrier and the figure of your opponent waiting at the far end. You pull on your helm, and the world is suddenly transformed into a slender horizontal slice of vision, a landscape of color and light filtered through the steel. The sound of your own breathing becomes the most prominent thing in the universe, a slow and rhythmic sigh that echoes inside the metal chamber of your head, grounding you in the present moment. You feel the warmth of the horse beneath you, the powerful vibration of her muscles as she shifts her weight, sensing the change in the air. This is the moment you have envisioned during those long, dusty days of training in the yards of your childhood, the endless hours of striking the quintin until your arms ached and the sun dipped below the battlements. You remember the smell of the straw and the sound of your father's voice, not harsh or demanding, but steady and patient, a guiding hand through the intricacies of the lance and the shield. Those memories are not distant now. They are here with you, woven into the very steel of your harness, a foundation of quiet competence that holds you steady as you wait for the signal. The world feels suspended, as if the sun has stopped its descent to watch this single, fleeting interaction between two souls in the middle of a meadow. You look down the length of the lists and see your opponent, a knight clad in forest green and silver, his own lance held upright like a needle against the blue of the sky. There is no enmity between you, only a shared participation in a ritual as old as the hills themselves. You feel your heartbeat slowing down, becoming a deep and hollow thud that seems to synchronize with the horse's own rhythm. The herald raises his baton, a sliver of dark wood that catches the light, and for a heartbeat, even the birds seem to stop their singing. Then the baton falls, and the world begins to move. You do not feel a jolt of sudden speed. Instead, it feels as though the earth is beginning to slide beneath you, a slow and deliberate unfurling of motion. You touch your spurs to the mare's flanks, a gentle suggestion, and she responds with a surge of power that is liquid and smooth. The sound of the hooves begins to change, moving from a sharp strike on the grass to a hollow, echoing thrum that sounds as if you are riding through a great, vaulted cathedral. The grass beneath you becomes a blur of emerald and gold, a rushing river of color that frames the narrow path of the tilt. You lower your lance, and the weight of the ash wood becomes a part of your arm, a long and elegant finger pointing toward the future. The movement is slow, almost languid, as you find the balance point, the place where the weapon becomes weightless and true. You see the green and silver knight approaching from the other side, his form growing larger in your field of vision. Yet he seems to be moving through a thick and golden ether. Time begins to stretch and warp, the seconds expanding into minutes as you focus on the small, singular point where your lance will meet his shield. You can see the individual links of his mail, the way the sunlight glints off the rivets of his gorget, and the slow, rhythmic rising of his horse's shoulders. The roar of the crowd is gone now, replaced by a profound and crystalline silence, a sanctuary of focus where nothing exists but the line of the charge. You feel the wind rushing through the narrow eye slits of your visor, a cool and refreshing stream that tastes of the mountains and the sea. You are not thinking of victory or defeat. You are simply experiencing the pure, unadulterated essence of the tilt, the intersection of strength and grace and gravity. The distance vanishes, the two worlds colliding in a moment that is both instantaneous and eternal. There is no jar to your system, no violent shock that rattles your bones. Instead, there is a firm and resonant pressure as your lance finds its mark. You hear the sound of the wood breaking, a clean and musical snap that vibrates through the length of the shaft and into your shoulder, a physical confirmation of a task well performed. It is a sound like a single, sharp note on a harp, resonating in the quiet air. You feel the slight resistance of the impact, a momentary tug of the earth, and then you are through, riding out the other side into the open space of the meadow. The silence breaks as the sound of the world rushes back in a gentle tide of applause and the distant calling of names. But it feels different now, as if you are hearing it from the other side of a great journey. You slow the mare to a walk, the thunder of her hooves fading back into the rhythmic crunch of the grass. You turn her in a wide, graceful circle, feeling the heat of her body and the satisfaction in her gait. You look back at the lists and see the green and silver knight also turning, his own lance shattered but his seat firm. You raise your hand in a silent salute, a gesture of gratitude for the shared moment, and he returns it with a tilt of his head. The sun is now beginning its final descent, hanging low and heavy in the sky like a ripened peach, and the light has turned a deep, shimmering amber that coats everything in a layer of liquid gold. You feel a profound sense of peace as you begin the slow ride back toward the tents, the long shadows of the pavilions stretching out to meet you like welcoming arms. The intensity of the charge has left you not exhausted, but centered and calm, as if the motion has burned away everything that was unnecessary, leaving only the quiet core of your being. You pass the wooden stands, which are now beginning to empty as the nobility prepares for the evening's festivities, their voices a soft and melodic murmur in the cooling air. The smell of the camp has changed again, the scent of the morning's bread replaced by the richer, savory aroma of roasting meats and the sharp, clean fragrance of the evening dew settling on the pines. You see the smoke from the cook fires rising in straight, blue needles toward the darkening sky, where the first pale stars are beginning to peek through the veil of light. Your squire meets you at the edge of the field, his face glowing with a quiet pride that mirrors your own. He takes the bridle of the mare, his touch light and respectful, and leads you toward the pale blue silk of your pavilion. You remain in the saddle for a moment longer, looking back at the torrent field as it is swallowed by the growing shadows. The white lists are now etched in silver by the moon's first reflection, and the churned earth looks like a map of 1,000 tiny adventures. You feel the weight of your armor differently now. It is no longer a burden of expectation, but a garment of experience, a history that you have written with your own hands. You think of the days to come, the other tilts and the other challenges, but they do not weigh on you. They are merely more threads to be woven into the tapestry. You dismount slowly, your boots finding the soft ground with a sense of homecoming, and you feel the cool air of the evening seep into the joints of your harness, a refreshing touch against your skin. The mare nudges your shoulder with her nose, her breath warm and sweet with the smell of clover, and you reach up to stroke her velvet ears, a silent thank you for her courage and her steady heart. The encampment is transforming into a world of lanterns and shadows, the colourful banners now dark and mysterious in the twilight. You hear the sound of a harp from a nearby tent, the notes clear and fragile as they drift through the air, telling a story of ancient kings and lost queens. It is a song of the land, a song of the memory that you are now a part of. You walk toward your tent, the grass beneath your feet feeling like the softest carpet, and you look up at the sky, which has turned a deep, bruised purple. The day's journey is over, and the night's rest is waiting for you. A vast and quiet ocean of sleep where the echoes of the tournament will become the fabric of your dreams. You feel the peace of the meadow settling into your bones, a stillness that is as deep as the roots of the trees and as wide as the horizon. The transition from the field to the firelight is a slow and beautiful movement, a gradual fading of the sun's gold into the hearth's amber. You are a knight of the realm, a dreamer of the tournament. And as you step into the shadow of your pavilion, you carry the light of the first hilt with you, a steady and enduring flame that will light your way through the long and quiet night. The world of Westeros is at rest now, the horses dozing in their pickets and the knights dreaming of glory. And you are one with the rhythm of the earth, a single heart beating in the silence of the great and ancient meadow. The amber light of the setting sun has finally surrendered to the deep, velvet embrace of a twilight that tastes of lavender and woods. And as you find your way back to the heart of the encampment, you feel the world slowing to the steady, rhythmic pulse of a sleeping giant. The vibrant, clashing colors of the afternoon have softened into a cohesive palette of deep blues and flickering oranges, as if the entire meadow has become a great hearth where the memories of the day are being gathered like tinder. You walk through the rows of pavilions, your steps silent upon the grass that is now cool and slick with the first kiss of the night's dew. And you notice how the energy of the camp has shifted from the sharp anticipation of the joust to a heavy, contented stillness. The great warhorses, their duties for the day concluded, stand in their pickets with heads bowed, their ears occasionally twitching at the sound of a distant cricket, their powerful bodies casting long, stationary shadows across the earth. You see the armor of the knights not as instruments of war, but as discarded shells resting against wooden posts and armor stands like the hollowed remains of silver beetles. The steel catches the light of the rising campfires, reflecting the orange glow in a way that makes the metal seem warm, almost soft, as if it too is weary and seeking rest. You pass a small cluster of tents where a group of squires is quietly cleaning the day's dust from greaves and breastplates, the rhythmic scrape of their pumice stones creating a lulling, hypnotic cadence that blends with the crackle of the fires. The air is thick and rich with the scents of the evening hour complex tapestry woven from the pungent aroma of charred oak, the earthy smell of trampled grass, and the savory, lingering fragrance of roasted venison and onions. Somewhere in the middle of the camp, a musician is plucking the strings of a harp, the notes falling through the air like droplets of water into a still pool, clear and resonant and profoundly lonely. It is a melody of the riverlands, perhaps, or a song from the high valleys of the Vale, carrying with it a sense of ancient longing that speaks to the hearts of all who listen. You find yourself drawn toward a larger fire where several older knights have gathered, their faces etched with the lines of many seasons and the shadows of many battles. You take a place among them, sitting on a fallen log that feels solid and honest beneath you, and you accept a cup of watered wine from a passing servant whose movements are as fluid and unobtrusive as the shadows. The wine is cool and tart, leaving a faint taste of the sun upon your tongue. And as you sip it, you listen to the low, rumbling murmur of the men around you. They are not speaking of the day's triumphs in the way of boastful boys. Instead, their conversation is a slow-flowing river of memory and reflection. They speak of past tournaments held in the shadow of Harrenhal or beneath the golden walls of Lannisport, their voices carrying a weight of reverence for names that are now little more than whispers in the wind. They talk of honor not as a grand, sweeping gesture, but as a series of small, quiet choices made in the dark, the choice to spare a fallen foe, the choice to keep a promise made to a dead friend, the choice to ride on when the body begs for rest. One knight, whose beard is as white as the peaks of the Frostfangs, speaks of the quiet loneliness of the road, the way the stars look different when seen from a dozen different kingdoms, and the strange, haunting beauty of a campfire shared with strangers who will be rivals by noon. He speaks of the armor as a burden and a blessing, a shell that keeps the world out but also keeps the man inside, isolated in his own thoughts even in the middle of a crowd. You, the young knight, listen more than you speak, your gaze fixed on the dancing heart of the fire. You feel the heat against your face, a sharp contrast to the cooling air at your back, and you find yourself reflecting on the weight of the steel you wore earlier that day. It felt like a part of you then, an extension of your will, but now, sitting here in your simple wool tunic, you feel the vulnerability of your own skin and the preciousness of the quiet. The older men look at you with eyes that have seen the world and found it wanting, yet there is a kindness in their gaze, a recognition of the path you are just beginning to tread. They do not offer advice so much as they offer presence, a shared space where the silence is as meaningful as the words. The conversation drifts like smoke, moving from the price of grain in the reach to the quality of Dornish steel, and then back to the intangible things that bind them all together, the shared history of the realm, the code that defines their lives, and the fleeting nature of the glory they seek. You realize that these tournaments are not just about the joust. They are about this moment, this gathering of spirits in the wilderness, this brief defiance of the dark. The music of the harp is joined by a flute, the two instruments weaving a delicate, silver thread through the tapestry of the night, and you feel the tension in your shoulders finally dissolve, leaving you light and hollow and at peace. The servant returns to refill the cups, his face a mask of quiet diligence, and you notice the way the light glyphs off the surface of the wine, a tiny, trapped sun within the circle of the cup. As the hours grow long and the fires begin to settle into glowing beds of embers, the knights begin to drift away to their own pavilions, their farewells brief and whispered. You remain for a moment longer, watching the last of the flames lick at the charred remains of a log, feeling the immense scale of the world around you. The encampment is falling into a deep, rhythmic slumber. The only sounds, the occasional stamp of a horse's hoof or the distant call of a night bird. You stand up, your limbs feeling heavy and satisfied, and walk back toward your own tent, but you do not go inside. Instead, you spread a thick, woolen cloak upon the grass nearby, far enough from the dying fire that the world becomes truly dark. You lie down, the earth feeling solid and supportive beneath your spine, and you look up at the sky. The canopy above you is a vast, indigo ocean, salted with a billion stars that seem to pulse with a light that is both cold and ancient. You recognize the constellations that have guided travelers since the dawn of time, the Shadowcat leaping across the northern sky, the crone's lantern burning steady and bright, and the seven-pointed star hanging directly overhead like a crown. You watch as they drift slowly, almost imperceptibly, across the heavens, a celestial clock that marks the passage of an age rather than an hour. The scale of it is overwhelming, yet it does not make you feel small. Rather, it makes you feel connected, a single, living point in a universe that is infinite and full of wonder. You think of the day that is past, the sound of the splintering lance and the roar of the crowd, and it feels like a dream that happened to someone else, a story told in a book you read long ago. What is real is the smell of the grass, the coldness of the night air, and the steady, rhythmic beat of your own heart. You think of the day that is to come, the second day of the tournament, where the stakes will be higher and the competition fiercer. But the thought does not bring you anxiety. It is merely another movement in the symphony, another step in the dance. You feel the sleep pulling at your senses, a soft, irresistible tide that carries with it the promise of total rest. Your eyes begin too heavy, and the stars above blur into a single, shimmering veil of light. You are a knight of Westeros, lying on the soil of your ancestors, watched over by the same stars that saw the first kings and the last dragons. The loneliness of the road that the old man spoke of feels not like a sorrow, but like a sacred space, a room where you can truly know yourself. The world is quiet now, the encampment a village of ghosts in the moonlight, and as you surrender to the darkness, you feel the peace of the meadow entering your soul, a stillness that is as deep as the roots of the world and as enduring as the stars themselves. You are drifting now, the echoes of the tournament becoming the softest of lullabies, the rhythmic breathing of the horses a heartbeat that matches your own. As the constellations continue their slow, majestic crawl across the deep and silent night, guiding you into the heart of a dream that has no end. The transition from the waking world to the world of sleep is a gentle slope, a gradual fading of the self into the vastness of the cosmos, until there is nothing left but the light of the stars and the quiet breathing of a man at rest. The night is a sanctuary, a time of healing and preparation. And as you close your eyes for the final time, you carry the warmth of the fire and the coolness of the wine with you into the dark, a memory of honor and companionship that will bloom again with the coming of the dawn. The great meadow is still, the mist is beginning to rise once more from the hidden streams, and the history of the realm is being written in the silence of your dreams. A story of knights and banners and the enduring power of the gentle heart. You are part of the landscape now, a feature of the earth, resting under the watchful eyes of the seven, while the world turns slowly on its axis, bringing the promise of another morning and another chance to ride into the light. The transition from the waking world into the realm of the sleeping mind is a slow and silent river that carries you away from the cooling embers of the campfire and toward a shore where time has no meaning. As you lie there beneath the watchful gaze of the crone's lantern and the smith's star, the weight of your body seems to dissolve into the damp earth, and the boundaries of your own identity begin to blur like ink dropped into a basin of clear water. You are no longer merely a young knight at a tournament in the Reach. You are a vessel for the collective memory of 1,000 years, a witness to the ghostly echoes of every lance that has ever been leveled in the name of honor. The dream begins, not with a flash of light, but with a thickening of the silver mist that has been rising from the meadow since the sun departed. This mist is different from the one you walked through at dawn. It is luminous and heavy with the scent of ancient cedar and sea salt, a fog that carries the voices of people who have been dust for centuries. You find yourself standing once again, at the edge of the lists, but the wooden stands are no longer made of fresh pine. They are constructed of gargantuan timbers of weirwood and ironwood, weathered by ages of wind and rain until they look like the bleached bones of sleeping dragons. The banners that hang from the high poles are unfamiliar, yet they resonate in your blood like a half-forgotten lullaby. You see the black crown of the ancient Storm Kings, the golden lion of a Casterly before the Lannisters were more than a whisper, and the bronze sigils of the first men, etched with runes that seemed to pulse with a slow, rhythmic light. There is no crowd here, or if there is, they are made of the same silver mist that clings to the ground. Their presence felt only as a soft, communal warmth and the occasional phantom sound of a long-vanished sigh. The field itself is vast and infinite, stretching out until the horizon meets the stars in a seamless arc of indigo. You watch as a knight emerges from the fog at the far end of the lists. He is clad in armor that looks as though it were forged from the very moonlight itself, a suit of pale, shimmering scales that move with the fluidity of water he carries. No shield, for he has no need of one. His presence is an island of absolute stillness in a world of shifting shadows. From the opposite direction comes another figure, riding a horse that seems to be made of woven smoke and starlight, its hooves making no sound as they strike the grass. This is the tournament of the ancients, the circular history of Westeros, where the beginning and the end are the same point on a turning wheel. You watch the charge begin, and it is the slowest movement you have ever witnessed. A majestic and deliberate unfurling of destiny. The horses do not gallop. They glide through the air as if the earth has no hold on them. The lances are not made of wood, but of long, tapered shafts of crystalline ice and solidified sunlight. When they meet, there is no sound of splintering or the jar of impact. Instead, there is a soft, musical chime, a vibration that ripples through the mist like a stone thrown into a mirror-still pond. The knights pass through one another like ghosts, their forms overlapping for a single, luminous second before they emerge on the other side, unchanged and undaunted. You realize that in this place, there is no victory and no defeat, only the eternal recurrence of the gesture, the beauty of the attempt, and the sanctity of the code. The dream shifts, and suddenly you are the one in the saddle, but your armor is made of the memories of your ancestors. You feel the weight of your grandfather's sword and the warmth of your mother's favor, which is no longer a simple ribbon, but a stream of liquid silver that flows from your shoulder to the ground. You look down at your hands and see that. They are both young and old at the same time, the hands of a boy and the hands of a veteran who has seen 100 winters. You are riding toward a knight who bears the sigil of a dragon, but the dragon is not made of fire. It is made of the blue roses of winter and the white snow of the north. As you charge, you hear the sound of 1,000 hooves behind you, the phantom cavalry of every knight who ever died with his shield unbroken. The sound is not a roar, but a hollow, resonant thrumming that echoes across generations, a heartbeat that belongs to the land itself. You feel the circularity of time, the way your first tilt in the waking world was merely a shadow of this ancient dance, and how every tilt that follows will be an echo of this one. The air around you becomes thick with the scent of forgotten things, the smell of old parchment, the tang of iron from a forge that died before the Andals came, and the sweet, cloying fragrance of a summer that lasted a decade. You see faces. In the mist, the legendary heroes of song and story, but they are not the giants you imagined. They are men with tired eyes and gentle smiles, resting their hands on the pommels of their swords as they watch you pass. They are the guardians of the memory, the silent witnesses to the continuity of the realm. You feel a profound sense of peace, a realization that you are never truly alone on the road or in the lists. For the history of the world is a cloak that you wear every time you lace your boots or fasten your chin strap. The dream begins to dissolve into a series of disconnected images, a single white flower growing in the center of a churned battlefield, a crown of gold sinking slowly into a black pool, a horse standing alone on a cliffside looking out at a sea that has no waves. These images are not omens. They are the debris of the past, the beautiful, broken bits of story that make up the floor of the mind. The sound of the hooves becomes more distant, moving from a thrum to a whisper, and then to the sound of your own breathing. The mist begins to lose its luminosity, turning from silver to a dull, pearlescent grey. You feel the coldness of the earth returning to your senses, the hardness of the ground beneath your back, and the weight of the woolen cloak pressing down on your chest. The stars above are fading, their light being swallowed by the slow, inexorable approach of the new day. You find yourself in the liminal space between the dream and the waking world, a state of consciousness where the boundaries are porous and soft. You can still feel the weight of the starlight lance in your hand, yet you can also feel the dew-soaked grass against your palms. You hear the phantom chime of the ghostly impact, but it is being replaced by the first, tentative chirp of a real bird in the elm tree above you. You do not want to move. You want to linger in this grey sanctuary where the knights of old still ride and the banners of forgotten kings still ripple in a wind that has no name. You think about the young knight you were yesterday and the knight you saw in the dream, and you wonder if there is any difference between the two. Perhaps the tournament is not a test of skill, but a way of communing with the ghosts, a way of stepping into the circle and holding your place for a few brief hours. The light in the east is a thin, bruised line of violet and pale gold, a promise of the sun that has not yet been kept. You slowly open your eyes, and the constellations are gone, replaced by the vast, empty clarity of the pre-dawn sky. You lie perfectly still, afraid that even a small movement will shatter the lingering fragments of the dream. Where does the memory of the dragon night end and the memory of your father's yard begin? You can no longer tell if the scent of cedar is from the dream or from the nearby cook fires that are being stoked into life by the early rising servants. The encampment is a collection of dark, silent shapes, the pavilions looking like the humps of great, buried beasts. You hear the long, low sigh of a horse picketed nearby, and it sounds exactly like the sigh of the smoky destrier in the mist. You feel a strange sense of reverence for the coming day, a realization that the second day of the tournament is not just a continuation of the first, but a new opportunity to honor the ghosts who rode with you through the night. You sit up slowly, the woolen cloak sliding off your shoulders, and you look at your hands in the dim light. They look ordinary, yet you can still feel the phantom vibration of the silver scales against your skin. You are standing on the edge of a new reality, a world that is being born out of the ashes of the old one. The stillness of the morning is profound, a cathedral of silence that waits for the first footfall of the day. You realize that the history of Westeros is not something that happened long ago. It is something that is happening now, in the way you breathe, in the way you wait, and in the way you prepare to face the light. The transition is almost complete. The last of the dream mist evaporating into the cool, sharp air of the reach. You stand up, your joints feeling fluid and strong, and you look toward the horizon where the first hint of gold is beginning to bleed into the violet. You are ready to walk back into the world of steel and silk, but you carry the silence of the circular time within you, a secret anchor that will keep you steady when the crowds begin to roar. The young knight is awake now, but the dream remains a part of his marrow, a quiet echo that will resonate in the strike of his lance and the rhythm of his heart. The day is coming, the second morning of the tournament, and as you turn to your pavilion to begin the ritual of the armor once more, you feel the presence of the centuries walking beside you. a silent vanguard of shadows and starlight that will never truly leave your side. The transition from the world of ghosts to the world of living men is as subtle as the fading of the morning star. And as you stand in the threshold of your pavilion, the cool, damp air of the Reach fills your lungs with a clarity that tastes of the waking earth. The dream has left a residue upon your spirit, a quiet stillness that makes the act of donning your armor feel less like a preparation for combat and more like a sacred investiture. Your squire, his eyes still heavy with the remnants of sleep, moves with a silent efficiency, his small hands navigating the leather straps and steel buckles with a reverence that mirrors your own internal calm. You feel the weight of the breastplate settle against your chest, not as a burden, but as a familiar embrace, a cold and solid reminder of the discipline that has shaped your life. Outside, the encampment is stirring with a renewed energy that is more focused and purposeful than the day before. The second day of the tournament is dedicated to the melee, a grand and rhythmic dance of blunted steel and painted shields, where the individual glory of the joust gives way to a collective display of martial grace. You walk toward the grand arena, and the world is once again a kaleidoscope of banners and light. But today the air feels different. It is charged with a quiet, steady hum of movement. The sun climbs higher, casting its golden net over the field, and you see the other knights gathering, their armor reflecting the brilliance of the day in long, shimmering streaks of light. There is a sense of belonging that begins to take root in your heart as you stand among the men from the craggy heights of the Vale, the sun-drenched plains of the Reach, and the misty valleys of the Riverlands. You realize that you are not rivals in the sense of enemies, but partners in a tradition that binds you across borders and bloodlines. The melee begins not with a roar, but with a signal from the herald that sounds like a long, resonant note from a silver flute. You step onto the field, and the ground beneath your feet is no longer the pristine carpet of yesterday, but a churned and honest earth that smells of history. The contests are controlled and ceremonial, a series of movements that have been practiced 1,000 times in the yards of ancient keeps. You move in harmony with the men around you, your blunted sword ringing softly against a shield like a bell tolling in a distant tower. The sound is musical, a rhythmic percussion that marks the passage of the day. You find yourself in a circle of steel, parrying a blow not with aggression, but with a fluid, measured grace that redirects the energy of your opponent back into the earth. There is no brutality here. The edges are dull, and the intent is to showcase the discipline of the body and the focus of the mind. You watch as a knight in a surcoat of pale blue moves with the lightness of a bird, his footwork a silent poem written in the dust. Dust rises gently in the sunlight, creating a golden haze that softens the edges of the combatants, making the entire scene feel like a tapestry come to life. You feel the sweat begin to bead on your forehead beneath your helm, a warm and honest reminder of your exertion. Yet your breathing remains steady and deep, synchronized with the rhythm of the strike and the parry. You begin to understand that the tournament is a microcosm of the realm itself, a place where order is maintained through ritual, and where honor is found in the way one carries oneself in the heat of the moment. You engage with a veteran knight whose movements are as economical as a master weaver's, and for a few minutes the two of you are locked in a silent dialogue of steel, a conversation that requires no words. You feel the vibration of his strike travel through your arm, a physical sensation that connects you to his strength and his experience. You are not trying to overcome him, but to meet him, to prove that you are a worthy part of this collective memory. The crowd in the stands is a distant, atmospheric murmur, a sea of voices that rises and falls like the tide, providing a backdrop of warmth to the focused intensity of the field. You see the banners rippling in the afternoon breeze, their colors now slightly muted by the fine layer of dust that has settled over the world, giving everything an aged and venerable quality. As the hours pass, the sun begins its long, slow descent toward the western hills, and the light turns to a deep, resonant amber that makes the steel of the armor glow as if it were forged from fire. You feel a creeping weariness in your limbs, a heavy, satisfying ache that speaks of effort well spent and lessons well learned. The melee draws to a close, not with a single victor, but with a gradual slowing of the movement as the knights disengage and salute one another with their swords. You stand in the center of the field, your chest heaving slightly, looking at the men around you with a profound sense of kinship. You are covered in the dust of the Reach, and your shield bears the honorable marks of the day's encounters. And in this moment, you feel more at home than you ever have before. The fulfillment you feel is not the sharp, fleeting spike of victory, but the deep, enduring satisfaction of belonging to something much larger than yourself. You are a knight of Westeros, a single thread in a garment that has been worn by generations of men who sought to find meaning in the dance of the sword. You begin the walk back to your pavilion as dusk approaches, the sky turning a bruised purple and gold, and the shadows of the tents stretching out to meet you like long-lost friends. The air is cooling, the scent of smoke and roasted meat returning to the camp, and you feel the weight of your armor as a comfort, a shell that has protected you through the trials of the day. You find your squire waiting with a basin of cool water and a clean cloth, and as you sit on your low stool and begin the process of removing the steel, you feel a sense of profound peace. The world is settling into its evening rhythm, the horses nickering in their stalls and the musicians beginning their nightly songs. And you are content to simply exist in the quiet space between the effort and the rest. The day has been a journey through the heart of honor, and as you look out at the darkening meadow, you feel weary but whole, a dreamer who has found his place in the waking world. The transition toward evening is a slow and beautiful fading of the light, a promise of sleep that is earned and deep. You are no longer the untried boy who stood in the mist of the first morning. You are a man who has heard the ring of the steel and felt the pulse of the crowd, and you carry that knowledge with you like a hidden treasure. The stars are beginning to emerge in the high vault of the sky, the same stars that watched over the dream nights of your sleep, and as you lie down on your pallet, the echoes of the melee become a soft, rhythmic lullaby that carries you toward the horizon of your own rest. The second day is done. The history of the realm has been enriched by another chapter of grace, and you are ready to surrender to the night, knowing that you have found your way into the heart of the legend. The encampment is a place of orange firelight and indigo shadows, a sanctuary of memory where the weariness of the body is the healing of the soul. You close your eyes, and the sound of the ringing shield stays with you, a gentle and enduring chime that marks the pulse of your own belonging. The world of Westeros is at peace, and so are you. As the dusk turns to dark and the dreams wait to take you back into the circle of the ancient stars, the transition from the communal warmth of the firelight to the quiet solitude of the natural world is a journey of only a few hundred paces. Yet as you walk away from the rhythmic hum of the encampment, it feels as though you are stepping out of one age and into another. The dust of the melee still clings to the creases of your leather boots and the hem of your tunic, a fine, golden powder that serves as a physical memory of the day's grace. But as you reach the edge of the great meadow, the air becomes cleaner, smelling of damp earth and the secret green life of the woods. You find yourself wandering into a landscape where the colors have been bled of their daytime vibrancy, leaving behind a world of indigo, charcoal, and silver. The wild flowers of the Reach, which earlier in the day were a riot of yellow and violet, now appear as pale, ghostly lanterns bowed by the weight of the evening dew. You walk among them with a slow and careful stride, your presence a gentle intrusion into their silent sanctuary. The sounds of the tournament, the distant laughter of knights sharing flagons of ale, the rhythmic clink of armor being stacked, and the high, thin call of a flutar carried to you by a soft wind that sighs through the tall grass, making the noise feel like a memory of a sound rather than the sound itself. It is a hauntingly beautiful sensation, a reminder that the world of men is a small and fleeting thing compared to the vast, indifferent piece of the land. You reach the bank of a slow-moving river, its surface a sheet of dark glass that reflects the first emerging stars and the pale, sickle moon. The water moves with a heavy, unhurried purpose, swirling around the roots of ancient willows that dip their long, emerald tresses into the current. You sit upon a moss-covered stone, feeling the coolness of the earth seep through your clothing, and you let the silence of the riverbank envelop you like a heavy woolen cloak. In this stillness, your mind turns toward the nature of the life you have chosen, reflecting on the pursuit of glory that drives so many to these fields of green and gold. You think of the knights you saw today, men who risked the integrity of their bodies and the sanctity of their peace for the sake of a cheer or a ribbon of silk. You wonder why the heart of a man is so often tethered to the recognition of others, and how the thunderous applause of the stands, which feels so solid and eternal in the moment of impact, can vanish as quickly as the mist when the sun rises. Glory, you realize, is a fire that requires constant tinder to stay aflame, a demanding and hungry guest that offers little warmth once the light is gone. But memory is something different entirely. It is the slow-burning ember beneath the ash, the quiet knowledge of a moment where you were perfectly aligned with your purpose. You think back to the tilt from the first day, not as a spectacle for the crowd, but as a feeling of unity with your horse and the air and the wood of the lance. That internal resonance, that secret vibration of the soul, is what remains when the banners are taken down and the wooden stands are left to rot in the winter rains. You understand now that the tournament is not a ladder to be climbed, but a circle to be entered, a place where you can touch the hem of something timeless. The laughter from the camp drifts over you again, sounding lonely and sweet, and you feel a profound sense of empathy for every man who has ever stood where you stand. They are all chasing the same ghost, searching for a way to prove that their lives have weight and meaning in a world that is vast and often cold. You look at your hands, pale in the moonlight, and you see them not as tools of war, but as the instruments of your own story. The quiet loneliness of the road, which the old knights spoke of by the fire, does not feel like a sorrow to you tonight. It feels like a privilege, a chance to see the world without the filter of expectation. You watch a single leaf drop from a willow branch and float away on the river, a tiny vessel carried by a power it cannot control, and you feel a similar surrender to the current of your own life. There is a deep and gentle joy in being a part of this unfolding history, in knowing that your heartbeat is part of the same rhythm that moved the knights of the Age of Heroes. You reflect on the idea of honor, realizing that it is not a destination but a way of walking, a commitment to the grace you felt in the melee, even when no one is watching. The air around the riverbank grows colder, the mist beginning to coil around your ankles in long ethereal fingers, and you take a deep, slow breath that fills your chest with the scent of the water and the dark. You are a young man at the start of a long journey, yet in this moment of introspection, you feel as old as the river itself. A witness to the cycles of the world, you think of the final day of jousts that awaits you on the morrow, the culmination of the tournament where the finest lancers will meet in the amber light of the closing ceremonies. You do not feel the sharp, biting edge of nerves, but rather a soft, blossoming readiness, a desire to return to the field, not to conquer, but to participate once more in the beautiful, splintering ritual. The stars have shifted their positions in the sky, the great bear turning slowly around the axle of the world, and you know it is time to return to the camp, to the warmth of the fires and the company of your peers. You stand up from the mossy stone, your movements fluid and quiet, and you turn your back on the river, though you carry its stillness with you. As you walk back toward the distant glow of the pavilions, the wildflowers seem to lean toward your path, their pale faces catching the starlight. The journey back feels shorter than the walk away, for you are moving toward the light and the promise of rest. You see the campfires of the various houses, each one a small, flickering star on the surface of the earth, and you feel a sense of homecoming that surprises you. This nomadic city of silk and steel is your home for now, a place of shared dreams and collective memory. You pass the horse pickets once more, and the smell of hay and warm animal hide is a comforting, grounding scent that anchors you to the present. You see your own tent in the distance, its pale blue fabric glowing softly from the lamp your squire has left burning inside. You think about the people back at your family's keep, imagining them sleeping in their stone beds, and you feel a thread of connection that spans the leagues between you. You are carrying their name into the lists, but more than that, you are carrying your own soul into the light. The introspection of the riverbank has cleared the last of the dust from your mind, leaving you focused and serene. You reach the edge of the camp and pause for a moment, looking back at the dark line of the woods and the silver ribbon of the river. The world is a beautiful, complex tapestry, and you are grateful for the chance to weave your own small thread into the design. The applause will fade, the banners will fray, and the names will eventually be forgotten. But the feeling of the dew on the grass and the weight of the lance in the dawn is something that belongs to you forever. You walk into the heart of the encampment, the sounds of the night becoming more distinct, the murmur of a sentinel, the crackle of a dying log, the soft snoring of a weary squire. The transition back to the world of men is complete, yet you remain changed by the silence. You are ready for the final day, ready for the impact and the roar and the quiet satisfaction that follows a task well done. You step into your pavilion, the warmth of the lamp welcoming you back, and as you prepare to lie down for the final night of the tournament, you feel the peace of the meadow settling into your bones, a stillness that is as deep as the roots of the world. The history of the realm is waiting for the dawn, and as you close your eyes, the last thing you see is the image of the river, flowing steady and true through the heart of the dark, carrying the memory of the stars into the morning. The final day of the jousts is a promise held in the palm of the night, and you are content to wait for its unfolding, a dreamer and a knight, perfectly at rest in the center of the world. The transition from the velvet sanctuary of the night into the vibrant clarity of the final morning is a slow and majestic unfolding, a movement of the world that feels both inevitable and profoundly new. You wake before the first bird has sung its greeting to the sun, finding yourself in a state of quiet readiness that is more like a prayer than an expectation. As your squire begins the ritual of the armor for the final time, The air inside the pavilion is cool and smells of the lavender your mother used to pack in the cedar chests of your home. A scent that grounds you in the continuity of your life. The steel feels different today. It is no longer cold against your skin, but seems to have absorbed the warmth of your intent, becoming a part of your own physical being as you step out into the camp. The encampment has undergone a final transformation. The number of spectators has grown, their colourful cloaks and caps creating a sea of movement that ripples at the edges of the meadow. The wind has picked up its pace, no longer a mere sigh, but a strong and steady current that makes the banners snap and whip with a renewed vitality, their sigils appearing to leap and swim in the brightening air. There is a quiet tension that vibrates through the grass, a collective holding of breath that is ceremonial rather than sharp, as the realm prepares to witness the culmination of the jousts. You lead your mare toward the lists, and the sound of her hooves is a rhythmic thrum that matches the steady pulse of your own heart. You can feel the eyes of the lords and ladies upon you, a weight of observation that you carry with a serene and unhurried grace. As you reach the end of the lists, the world begins to narrow, the periphery of the crowd and the pavilions fading into a soft and indistinct blur of colour. You pull your helm down, and the familiar horizontal world of the visor becomes your entire reality, a sanctuary of focus where the only sounds are your own measured breathing and the distant, rhythmic call of the herald. You look down the long, white line of the tilt, and there waits your final opponent, a figure encased in armour of dark, polished iron that reflects the sky like a storm-tossed sea. There is a profound stillness in that space between you, a gap of time that feels as though it could contain 1,000 years. The wind catches the plumes on your helms, tossing them like sea spray, yet the core of your being remains perfectly motionless. This is the moment where the training of your youth, the dreams of your sleep, and the reflections of the riverbank all converge into a single, crystalline point of existence. The herald raises the baton, and for a heartbeat, the entire universe seems to hold its breath. The silence so deep that you can hear the rustle of the silk favour against your breastplate. The baton falls, and the world begins to slide. You do not feel the jolt of the charge as a sudden event, but as a slow and beautiful expansion of motion, a journey through a golden ether that stretches and bends with every stride of your horse. The sound of the hooves becomes a hollow, echoing percussion, a rhythmic beating that seems to originate from deep within the earth itself. You feel the wind rushing through the narrow slits of your steel mask, a cold and invigorating stream that tastes of high mountains and ancient stone. You lower your lance, and it feels as light as a feather, an extension of your own will that points toward the center of the dark iron night. The distance between you collapses with the slow grace of a falling leaf, every detail magnified and suspended in the amber light of the morning sun. You can see the individual rivets on your opponent's shield, the way the wind catches the edges of his surcoat, and the steady, unblinking eye of his destrier. Time has become a liquid thing, a slow-moving river where the seconds are elongated into minutes. You are not thinking of victory, nor are you thinking of defeat. You are simply existing in the pure, unadulterated essence of the gesture. The point of your lance finds its mark with a precision that feels as though it were written in the stars before you were born. There is a moment of contact that is both instantaneous and eternal, a firm and resonant pressure that vibrates through the ash wood, through your arm, and into the very center of your soul. It is a sound of wood and steel meeting in a perfect, splintering harmony, a sharp and musical crack that echoes across the meadow like the strike of a great bell. The air is suddenly filled with pale, dancing shards of wood that catch the light like diamonds, whirling in the wake of your passage. You feel a sensation of immense weight and absolute weightlessness occurring at the exact same time. A paradox of the spirit that anchors you to the ground even as it lifts you toward the sky. The world around you becomes a kaleidoscope of spinning color and light. The emerald of the grass and the blue of the sky and the white of the lists all blending into a single, shimmering veil. You ride on through the cloud of dust and splinters, the sound of the world rushing back in like the roar of a distant sea. The crowd's voice rises in a great, collective wave of sound, but it feels muffled and far away, as if you are listening to it from beneath the surface of a deep and tranquil pool. You do not turn to look back at the tilt, nor do you check the seat of your opponent. You simply continue to ride, letting the mare find her own pace as the thunder of the charge fades into the rhythmic crunch of the grass. The dust begins to settle behind you, a golden haze that hangs in the air like the ghost of the encounter. You feel a profound sense of peace, a stillness that is deeper and more resonant than any you have ever known. The weight of the armor no longer feels like a burden, and the silence of the helm is a comfort that protects you from the sudden clamor of the day. You are a knight of the realm, a participant in a story that has no end. And in this ambiguous moment of transition, the outcome of the joust matters far less than the grace with which it was performed. The roar of the crowd becomes a distant and rhythmic pulse, a sound that belongs to another world, while you remain in the quiet sanctuary of your own experience. The light of the sun is bright and uncompromising, yet it feels gentle against the steel of your harness. You ride toward the edge of the field, your shadow long and thin upon the churned earth, as the echoes of the impact continue to vibrate in the marrow of your bones. The world is a place of smoke and sunlight and memory, and as you move away from the lists, you carry the stillness of the dawn and the strength of the river with you. The transition is complete. The final tilt has been run, and as the dust settles over the meadow of the reach, the history of the tournament enters its final, quiet phase. You are a dreamer who has walked through the fire and found the center of the flame. And as the sounds of the world begin to fade into the steady, rhythmic breathing of your horse, you are content to let the mystery remain. A single note of honor hanging in the air like the scent of wood smoke in the evening. Gemini Zunu Dedi, the transition from the height of the sun to the long, lingering shadows of the late afternoon marks the closing of the circle, a slow and rhythmic folding of the world that brings the grand pageantry of the tournament to a quiet and reflective end. You find yourself back at your pavilion, the same space of pale blue silk that held your dreams and your prayers for the past several days. But it feels different now, as if the air within it has been seasoned by the weight of the events you have lived. The sound of the crowd has diminished into a low, receding hum, a sound like a distant sea pulling back from a sandy shore, leaving behind a landscape of churned earth and quietude. Your squire approaches you with the same steady, reverent touch, and together you begin the slow ritual of removing the armor. But today the process feels like an unburdening of more than just steel. As the breastplate is unbuckled and lifted away, you feel the cool air of the reach brush against your damp tunic, a sensation of profound relief and renewal. The greaves and the gauntlets are set aside on the wooden chest, no longer instruments of a legend in the making, but honest objects of utility that have served their purpose well. You look at your body in the soft light of the tent, noticing the faint, blooming bruises upon your shoulder and your thigh knot as injuries, but as quiet, violet maps of the journey you have taken. They are tended gently with a cloth dipped in cool water and a pungent, soothing salve of wintergreen and arnica. The touch of the water, a rhythmic blessing that settles the lingering vibration of the impact. Outside, the great mechanism of the encampment is beginning to reverse its gears. You hear the rhythmic, repetitive sound of wooden mallets striking tent pegs, a hollow and percussive noise that echoes across the meadow as the silk palaces are brought down to earth. The colorful banners, which only hours ago snapped with the energy of the wind, are being folded with care into heavy cedar trunks, their bright sigils disappearing into the dark until the next spring call. You walk out into the cooling air and watch the wagons as they are loaded, the heavy wheels creaking with a slow and musical groan as they accept the weight of the pavilions and the armor chests. The horses, sensing the coming journey, are calm and patient, their tails flicking lazily at the few remaining flies of the afternoon. You see the knights who were your rivals and your companions moving through the camp, their faces stripped of the anonymity of the helm, revealing the tired, satisfied eyes of men who have shared a common truth. There is a sense of belonging that fills your chest as you exchange a nod, or a quiet word with a knight from the Stormlands, or a squire from the north. You realize that you have gained something far more enduring than a trophy or a purse of gold. You have gained an understanding of the rhythm of your own heart, a sense of place within the long, unbroken line of those who seek the light. You reflect on the fact that victory and defeat are merely two different words for the same. Experience the willingness to stand in the center of the field and offer the best of oneself to the moment. The applause has faded, just as you knew it would. But the memory of the wind in your visor and the steady heartbeat of your mare is a treasure that cannot be taken away. You walk toward the edge of the field where the grass is already beginning to spring back from the weight of the stands, a testament to the quiet persistence of the earth. The world feels immense and peaceful, a vast indigo bowl waiting for the stars to spill back into it. You think of the road that lies ahead, the leagues of forest and river that will lead you back to your home, and you realize that you are carrying a different man back than the one who arrived in the mist. The loneliness of the road that the old knight spoke of now feels like a sanctuary, a place where you can carry this new quietude within you. The wagons begin to pull away in long, slow lines, their drivers calling out softly to the teams. The sound of the hooves on the dirt road, a rhythmic and grounding percussion. The field is slowly emptying, the grand city of silk dissolving back into a simple meadow, leaving only the dark, churned lines of the lists as a reminder of the glory that was. You find your own wagon nearly packed, the chestnut mare waiting by the tongue with a soft nicker of recognition. You reach out and stroke her neck, feeling the warmth of her life and the steady reality of her presence. The sun has dipped below the horizon now, leaving a bruised and beautiful sky of purple and burnt orange that reflects in the still pools of the river. The silence is returning to the meadow, not as a void, but as a presencer, deep, rhythmic breathing of the land that has witnessed the passage of another chapter of its history. You stand for a moment longer in the center of what was once the arena, looking at the long shadows of the trees as they stretch across the grass. You feel a profound sense of fulfillment, a quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you have held your place in the circle and found that the circle was wide enough to hold you. The transition from the noise of the tournament to the silence of the evening is a gentle and beautiful movement, a slow fading of the self into the landscape. You are a knight of Westeros, a dreamer who has woken to find the dream was true. And as you prepare to climb into the saddle for the first leg of the journey home, you carry the peace of the Reach in your marrow, The tournament grounds are nearly empty now, a vast and silvered expanse where the mist is beginning to rise once more from the cool earth. The history of the realm is at rest, the echoes of the lances becoming the whispers of the wind in the tall grass. You look up at the sky, where the first pale stars are beginning to bloom in the deep violet, and you feel a sense of kinship with the light. The day is done, the banners are packed, and the glory has settled into the quietude of memory. You are ready for the road, ready for the silence, and ready for the next dawn, knowing that the strength you found on this field is a flame that will never truly go out. The world is dark and still, a sanctuary of rest for the weary and the brave, and as you turn your horse toward the path, you are one with the rhythm of the stars and the slow, enduring pulse of the ancient earth. The transition from the vibrant heat of youth to the cool, amber glow of the middle years is a slow and rhythmic changing of the seasons, a gradual deepening of the shadows that brings a different kind of light to the landscape of the soul. You stand once again at the edge of a great tournament meadow, perhaps in the very same corner of the Reach, or perhaps in the golden fields of the Westerlands, but the geography matters less than the resonance of the air which remains unchanged across the vast span of the decades. Years have carved their stories into your face and silvered the hair at your temples, and the armor you wear today is not the shimmering, unscarred plate of your first tilt, but a suit of seasoned steel, darkened by oil and bearing the honorable dings and scratches of a life lived in the service of the code. You find yourself standing not with the frantic energy of a contender, but with the steady, grounded patience of an oak tree watching the saplings sway in the breeze. As you look across the encampment, you see the younger knights, boys with smooth faces and eyes full of fire, moving with the same hurried intensity you once possessed. You watch a youth in a surcoat of pale primrose as he struggles with the buckle of his greave, his hands shaking slightly with the cold and the nerves of his first real contest. You do not feel the urge to challenge him or to prove your own fading speed. Instead, you feel a profound and quiet empathy, a desire to reach out and steady his hand with a word of silent encouragement. The world has become a place of echoes for you now. Every sound you hear is a ghost of a sound from your own past. The rhythmic chink of mail being lifted from a stand is the echo of that first dawn in the mist. The scent of the wood smoke and the breaking bread is the fragrance of every morning you have ever known. And the distant, muffled thunder of hooves on the sod is a percussion that has beaten through the marrow of your bones for half a lifetime. You realize that the glory you once chased so fiercely is like the morning dew upon the clover, brilliant and dazzling for a brief, beautiful hour, but destined to vanish as the sun climbs higher. What remains is not the trophy or the name recorded in a dusty chronicle, but the memory of the wind, the feeling of the horse's muscles bunching beneath you, and the sacred, silent bond shared with the men who stood across from you in the lists. You watch as the afternoon jousts begin, and the sound of the splintering wood no longer feels like a sharp shock, but like a melodic punctuation in a long and familiar poem. You see the lances rise and fall in the same graceful arcs you have navigated 1,000 times, and you understand that you are witnessing the circular nature of history, the way the realm renews itself through the dreams of its children. Nostalgia has replaced ambition in your heart, not as a sorrow, but as a warm and comforting light that illuminates the path behind you. You think of the knights who rode with you in those early days, many of whom are now legends, and some of whom are merely names carved into stone in quiet septries, and you feel their presence as a soft vanguard walking beside you in the twilight. The camp is beginning to settle as the sun touches the horizon. the air turning thick and sweet with the smell of the evening pines and the cooling earth. You walk through the rows of pavilions, and the sight of the banners hanging heavy in the fading light brings a sense of profound peace. They are the same sigils, the roses, the lions, the stags, yet they seem older and wiser, as if the fabric itself has learned the value of stillness. You reach the horse pickets and find your own mount, a steady and powerful beast that lacks the fire of your youth, but possesses a wisdom of the trail that matches your own. You lean your head against his neck, feeling the warmth of his life and the rhythmic expansion of his ribs, and you are content to simply be a part of this enduring landscape. The tournament is ending, not just for the day, but perhaps for your own chapter in this grand, slow-moving story. You feel a sense of fulfillment that is as deep as the roots of the world, a satisfaction that comes from knowing you have played your part with honor, and that the song will continue long after your own voice has faded into the wind. The field is slowly emptying once more, the wagons creaking as they prepare for the journey, and the laughter of the crowd is becoming a distant, rhythmic murmur that blends with the sigh of the trees. You think back to that young man who stood by the riverbank so many years ago, wondering if his glory would endure, and you want to tell him that the endurance is not in the glory, but in the love of the act, in the grace of the moment, and in the quiet companionship of the road. The light is turning to a deep, bruised indigo, the stars beginning to bloom in the high vault of the sky like white flowers in a dark garden. You see the crone's lantern burning steady and bright, and you follow its light back toward the center of the camp, your steps slow and measured upon the damp grass. The history of Westeros is a tapestry woven of a million such moments, a collection of sighs and charges and quiet reflections that make up the soul of the land. You feel the weight of the years as a gift, a heavy and beautiful cloak that keeps you warm in the evening chill. The transition to the final rest is approaching, the long shadows of the tents meeting and merging until the meadow is a single, unified sanctuary of dark and light. You are a seasoned warrior, a keeper of the memory, and as you prepare to unlace your boots for the night, you carry the stillness of a lifetime within you. The world is growing quiet, the voices of the camp fading into the rhythmic call of the owls and the rustle of the wind in the tall grass. The echo of the hooves is gone now, replaced by the heartbeat of the earth itself, a slow and steady pulse that invites you to surrender to the coming sleep. You have ridden the lists, you have felt the impact, and you have watched the sun rise and set over 1,000 fields of honor. Now it is time to let the dream take hold, to let the images of the banners and the horses drift away like smoke into the night sky. You lie down on your bed of furs and wool, the scent of the cedar and the earth rising up to meet you, and you feel the boundaries of yourself beginning to dissolve into the vast indigo peace of the realm. You are a part of the history, a part of the song, and a part of the quiet, enduring spirit of the Knights of West. The day is done, the circle is closed, and the darkness is a kind and gentle friend that watches over you as you drift toward the horizon of your own rest. The stars are moving in their ancient, circular paths, the same stars that saw the first tourney and will see the last, and in their light you find the ultimate belonging. The world is at peace, the meadow is silent, and as you close your eyes, you are carried away by the slow and rhythmic tide of a dream that has no beginning and no end, a story written in the stars and the silence of the heart. Sleep now, while the banners hang still and the grass grows over the marks of the hooves, for the memory of the honor is eternal and the night is long and full of grace. As the last embers of the campfires fade into silver ash and the cool mist of the Reach rises to cradle the sleeping world in its soft and luminous arms, you feel the gentle weight of the ages settling over you like the finest silk. The world of Westeros is a vast and quiet cathedral tonight, its pillars made of ancient stone and its roof the infinite, star-salted sky, and you are its silent congregant, resting in the peace that follows a life of purpose. Let the rhythm of your breathing become the rhythm of the wind in the distant pines, and let the pulse of your heart match the slow, deep thrum of the earth beneath you. For there is no more need for the lance or the shield, only the need for the stillness. You are drifting now, floating upon a calm and sunless sea of memory where the echoes of the tournament are nothing more than the softest ripples against the hull of your dreaming mind, the faces of friends, the colors of the sunrise, and the silver flash of the steel all blend into a single, shimmering veil of tranquility that leads you deeper into the heart of the night. Every step you took, every charge you made, and every quiet moment of reflection has led you to this perfect, suspended point of rest, where the history of the realm is nothing but a lullaby sung by the stars. The darkness is warm and protective, a sanctuary where the weariness of the body is transformed into the healing of the soul, and as you surrender to the soft, irresistible pull of the deep, you know that you are held. You are honored, and you are home. Sleep, night of the meadow, while the moon traces its silver path across. The quiet lists, and the world turns slowly toward another dawn you need not yet face. The story is told, the light is dimmed, and the peace of the earth is yours, now and for all the long and silent hours of the beautiful, enduring dark.